Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Sooner or later,
I like the Texas Ranger credo, which is actually borrowed from one of the founding Texas Rangers. A man in the wrong can't stop a man in the right that keeps on a-coming. And that's what we've got to do, because these people mean business. We're fighting. Short segment right now, long one coming up. I wanted to get to some of the things that Wayne may never have talked about on air first, then we'll get back into solutions and where this country's going, and his brother and the family, and now one of his nephews, Rand Paul, looks like is going to run for the Congress. But go back to your rural upbringing, some stories about you and your brothers, about Ron, and about what it's been like for you. Well, how you woke up, how he woke up, or were you guys born awake, being born to hardworking farmers, dairy farmers? All of you guys working from the time you were about 6, 7 years old. Were you guys born awake, or what was the process like? Let us into a window of the icon that is your brother, Dr. Ron Paul, and yourself, of course.
Okay. We were born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, small rural town, and my mother and father had a dairy, milk processing, and delivery business. It started out in the basement of our house, and my mom and dad worked 7 days a week to process, bottle milk, and deliver it. And we were always required on Sundays to go to church Sunday morning, and my dad took off enough time to go to church. But he worked 7 days a week up until I was in 5th grade. Now, I'm the youngest of 5 boys. Ron is the middle of the 5 of us. So we claim he's the spoiled one in the family because the 2 oldest ones paved the way for him. And then we were never allowed to do anything, but we always say Ron got away with all of it. I'm saying that because he can't rebut that on this radio show. So be careful. I might deny that later on. Anyway, my revelation into this knowledge started back in the early 70s, and it had to do with my representation of a taxpayer who, after I started to represent him, he ended up 6 weeks after I met him passing away. And it was a direct result of the confrontation he had with the Internal Revenue Service.
Oh.
And I said to myself, if this is the way it is, I'm not going to ever do another tax return because something's not right in the system. So that was my awakening call, and that started my research, my documentation, and everything that I've learned from that point on has held me in better stead, made me better understand. And I think when people understand and learn, even if they can't do anything about it, they're better off morally, they're better off spiritually, and they're better off in their dealings with their fellow man. That makes all the difference in the world.
What woke your brother up? Tell us about Congressman Ron Paul, your brother.
Well, I think Ron's timing was the fact that when he was in college and medical school and working, he always had spare time. And he got involved in research and study of Ludwig von Mises. And von Mises is the father of free enterprise Austrian economics. And there's a von Mises Institute that's in existence today that's extremely successful and continues to support free enterprise economics.
And it's headed up by Lew Rockwell.
That is correct. And it made a lot of sense to him, so he started to apply it not only in his professional life, but in his personal life, and was extremely successful in the implementation of free enterprise economics. And it was at that time that he started to formulate the idea that he needed to teach this to other people.
All right, stay there. Let's continue with this on the other side and also talk about your saga. You've had quite a story as well. And then we'll open the phones up for Wayne Paul, brother of Congressman Dr. Ron Paul. 1-800-259-9231. 1-800-259-9231. Stay with us. PrisonPlanet.tv is the website. Going back to Wayne Paul, Dr. Ron Paul, Congressman Ron Paul's brother, finishing up with your upbringing. So your brother gets into the free market economics. He's a doctor. Then I guess he started getting involved with Barry Goldwater somehow. Tell us more about the inside scoop on your brother.
Well, I think his total goal and effort when he first decided to run for Congress was to educate people in understanding free enterprise economics. And he said to Carol, his wife, the first time he ran, he said, don't worry, Carol, I'm not going to win. I just want to get the message out. Well, the first time he didn't win. But she says, what are you going to do if you do win? Well, the next time he ran, he won. Now, when he first ran for Congress back in the mid-'70s, he had a platform, one-page platform he was running on, and it just so happens that my wife gave him his first contribution, and he sent her a thank you note, and the second page was his platform of what he was running on, which was basically free enterprise economics. But if you were to read that single page today, you would think he wrote it yesterday, because he's never changed. And I think that's the most consistent thing that anybody can ever say as far as my brother's concerned, is he's never wavered from the truth and from the facts and from the Constitution. And he has just been amazing and steadfast in that, and I think people today now realize that.
And you judge a tree by its fruits. Do you remember any of the things on that one-page platform?
Well, I can't remember right off, except while I'm talking, we'll find it, and maybe my wife...
Sure. Coming up after the next break, if you can, it's just very, very interesting history here. Now, and as your brother has humbly and rightfully said, he is just an articulate, genteel, intelligent focal point. And 2 years ago, well, now a year and a half ago, at Bilderberg, our inside sources that have been proven to be very, very accurate said that they were worried not about Ron Paul winning during that campaign, but that they were worried about the movement, that the biggest movement now in high schools and universities wasn't the controlled left paradigm or the controlled right paradigm of the collectivist, but that people were now rediscovering the Bill of Rights, Constitution, and becoming free market constitutionalists, and that people were discovering the private Federal Reserve. And I think they had well-founded fears. Now here we are a year and a half later, and we've gone from almost, and I know I keep repeating this, no one knowing the Fed was private, being laughed at, to now the enemies had to come out in the open and go, okay, we're private, but we run things for your own good, and if you audit us, we'll cause a depression. Basically terrorism, economic terrorism. And we have open announcements of a new Bank of the World we'll pay our carbon taxes to, and now for world government, and hundreds of articles a month pushing this on us, and nobody's buying it. All the things we talked about have come true and are happening. We're now at this key battle point in history that your brother talked about, that I talked about, that when the crisis came, when the bankers were imploding the world economy by design to bring in their system, that was a weak point for them. Their great moment of triumph, but also their weak point if we point out, hey, the emperor's butt naked, this is a fraud, the emperor's new clothes. And now to really see it's so viral, this idea of liberty, I mean, this shows us we can have victory. This gives us hope. It shows people that had kind of given up, who had been fighting for decades like yourself, not saying you ever did, that none of this was done for naught. that the seeds we planted that a lot of people ignored are now sprouting in the minds of men and women everywhere. Can you speak to just the amazing revolution of liberty and freedom we're seeing?
Well, I have a book sitting in front of me that I continually tomorrow and reread. It's called The History of Our National Debt, The Coming Battle. It's written by Lorraine and Paul Walters. And if somebody really wants to understand where we're at, if they read this history, it'll absolutely...
Yeah, didn't they republish that from an 1898 book and they wrote the foreword?
That is correct.
That's an excellent book.
It is so enlightening that it's worth the read by anybody interested in it. I keep reading it because I learn something new every time.
And for those that don't know, this was a guy I read it 10 years ago when he republished it.